Very warm welcome to LEAP, Westernacher's yearly innovation forum. From the tortured dungeons of systems integration to the promised land of business innovation. That's a pretty dramatic title, but there's a reason for that. In this session, we will be exploring the new era of business innovation that is technology-driven with applications like Signavio, LeanIX, and, importantly, a renaissance of consulting versus systems integration. I am Benjamin Dewilde, Group CEO of Westernacher Consulting. Let's dive right in. Most companies these days are on a journey. They have to change. They're adopting new technology. They're moving from their old SAP platforms to S/4HANA. They're moving from on-premise into the cloud. They're adopting many new applications. Now, you could think that the business community in those companies would be excited about that. New tools, improved processes, new technology. They're not. They're dreading it. It feels like they're going into a torture dungeon, like this poor fellow here. And that's because of the way technology has been implemented and how information technology consulting has morphed into what is now known as systems integration and the approach that is. What is that approach? Most large information technology projects these days run like this. We select a number of key users, people who really know the business processes in the company very well in a certain process domain. Then we put those people into a room, what's what I call the torture dungeon here. By the way, we call those key users typically, right? And then we put them under duress. We make them specify all the requirements of what they want in the new system. Now, the problem with that is they don't know what the new technology is. They haven't been able, because it's so complex. There's so many new things out there. And these are typically people that are very busy running the day-to-day business of the company. So these people are being forced to specify requirements. So what are they going to specify? They're going to relate what they're doing today, what has been implemented in a system 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and morphed over time. Yeah? They're not going to be able to reflect on process innovation, the latest and greatest technology, and how that applies to their business. And that's a pretty painful exercise. It really feels like torture, because whatever they specify is what they're going to have to live with for the next 10 years. And that's now been the approach. And systems integrators' approach is basically listening to those requirements, writing them down, and then implementing that. Instead, what the businesses need is they need a vision. They need to be shown and explained what the new technology is and what it can do for their business, what it can do in their industry. And that basically leads to medieval systems and bad implementations. Now, fear not, because the promised land is coming. What you see here on this picture is the front cover of the encyclopedia by Dewilde, the first comprehensive encyclopedia, which really collected all the knowledge of the science of the day and the state of the art of science and technology. And that's really an image that I would like to transport here. That is what the business community needs. They need to be shown and in their context, in their industry context, what the innovation tech is in the technology space, what new capabilities there are, what new applications, and how they fit together, how they fit with the processes. To then be able to say, okay, that works for me, and here I need to adjust. Now, what is that promised land that we will explore now? It is basically having all of the best practice processes at your fingertips and knowing at a high level, but also in minute detail, exactly how state-of-the-art processes are run in your industry today and how they leverage new technology. It's not only knowing what is out there, it's also knowing what is happening in your company. It's not so easy to know exactly what is happening. There's probably a design, there are some flow charts of how your processes are supposed to work. but how is it really being used in, how are applications really being used in your company? How are processes really being run? Finding that out is not so easy, but that is now automated. With Signavio, you can now have process insights and look at what your system is telling you about how your processes are actually running. And then you can compare and contrast that with what the future offers in an automated way, without putting your business key users under duress to have to come up with this themselves. You can see that from the systems. We also have a new methodology, a methodology to implement applications, implement new architectures, new systems at SAP Activate, which is very much focused on this fit to standard and on a future-oriented approach. And most importantly, we're now moving into an era where information technology consulting becomes consulting again, not systems integration, where consultants will take a proactive approach to providing a vision that is fit for your company in your industry and that applies the latest technology and the best practices of all the processes. Let's go into a little bit more detail on that. And we'll use the classical 4 dimensions of processes, people, technology, and data, which are also core to all business innovations these days. On the processes side, we have a tool now, Signavio, which is an SAP tool, to model and manage your processes. And it's not just having a tool. What we can put in this tool is the best practices specified into detail, into BPMN business process charts that really specify exactly how best practice processes run. That encapsulates the deep expertise, domain expertise that our consultants have about the process domain at hand. It also, if you do it right, it also encapsulates not just a standard generic best practice, but one that takes into account the specific needs of your industry. And this is where it gets tricky, because that is not something that you can just find off the shelf. But we can build now repositories of best practice processes, not just generic, but specific to your industry, specific to a process domain that really captures the finesse of an optimized and innovative process in that area. As mentioned earlier, we can also have automated insights into how your processes are running currently on the old technology that was implemented 5, 10, 15 years ago. And there's an automated way to contrast those and to see where the differences are. And that will allow you to really make that journey much less painful. And then there are, of course, also completely new business opportunities and innovations. And you can leverage the Signavio suite and the process modeling tools there to model completely new processes. And this is, of course, where you then apply more of the design thinking approaches and the agile methodologies. So we have the processes covered. People. Technology change is to a large degree also a people change. And one of the fundamentals that is needed to implement change in an organization is clarity on what the future state is. Clarity also on what the current state is, what the differences are, and how we get to the new state. And the technologies involved, Signavio, LeanIX, provide this central repository, this central source of truth in terms of what the new processes are, what the new organization is, what the new architectures are that we are moving to. And with WalkMe, SAP is now also in the process of purchasing an application that will assist the users in a much more personalized way in making that change. And we've just introduced a new topic here, LeanIX, which is the architecture and strategy management suite of SAP, tightly integrated with the process view of Signavio. And we touch on this in the technology dimension again. So with LeanIX, we now have a tool to manage your complete landscape, all of your applications, but not just from a technical perspective, from strategy, through strategy road mapping, to architecture, business architecture, application architecture, technical architecture interfaces, all of that in one place, integrated with the business processes. The business process definitions in Signavio are, of course, much more powerful if you can directly link them to the capabilities, the applications, and the capabilities within those applications that support those business processes. And that's what LeanIX offers us. And then there are other tools that support this journey, like Cloud ALM, and for the on-premise world, SAP Solution Manager. From a technology perspective, this is all going to be based on a very strong foundation of the business technology platform and a more modular approach to ERP and the many different additional innovations on top of ERP. And LeanIX, together with Signavio, really helps you to manage that whole journey and bring clarity into how your business strategy is supported by a business architecture, by an application architecture, and a technical architecture. Processes, architectures, applications, technology wouldn't be anything if there wasn't data in it. And data, increasingly big data, is driving all of the technology and business innovations of the day. So data is not just data, it's a key asset of most businesses these days. Managing data is complex. You have to know the taxonomy, you have to have the definitions of the data correct, you have to be able to interface it between different applications. And the tools that we've been talking about, Signavio, LeanIX, Cloud ALM, or Solution Manager, allow you to do just that. It allows you to pick up the data objects that are part of your ERP environment and use those in your process modeling. Use those in your application architecture. Clarify exactly what data objects and attributes are used where, by whom, and in which applications. Clarify between which systems they are exchanged and how those interfaces run. So those aspects of data management are also covered in a very well-structured way. And it's not just the definition of that data and the taxonomy and the consistency and the technical aspects of it. It's also the content of that data. Signavio, but also Cloud ALM, they allow you to explore what data is actually being used in your systems. So if you, for example, have a number of sales order types that have been defined in your system, you don't really typically know which ones are actually used by which people in which side of the organization and how they are used. Well, Signavio Process Insights and allows you to explore those aspects of the data. What attributes are really being used? What's the content of them? And how is the consistency of that data before you then move it into a new environment? Also, the interface definitions and the management of the data that needs to move into your new platform is supported by powerful tools in this area. Now, we've looked at processes, people, technology, architectures, data, and there's a lot of complexity in that. There's lots of new innovations, enormous amounts of different applications and capabilities. Now, it still doesn't feel like we're out of the torture dungeon. We need to put this all together into a clear and compelling vision that fits your industry, that doesn't just fit standard, because standard is too generic. We do need to look at the specifics of your industry and the innovations that are really driving change in your industry, at the processes, how they are run in best practice in your industry. And this is where our added value comes in. This is where we as Westernacher put together what we call a business industry value proposition. We put together the processes, the best practice processes both the generic ones that work in your industry as well as the industry-specific ones. We combine that with the architecture that is fit for your industry, with the capabilities that you need from a technology perspective, leaving out all of the applications and complexity that are not that relevant for your industry and your business. And we provide business context to that. Now, the Westernacher industry value proposition, to do that, heavily utilizes these new technologies, Signavio and LeanIX, because that's where we can really capture in a consistent, easy to access way all of the complexity of business processes, application architecture, strategy roadmaps, and so on in a digital form, so it's easy for you to explore. What it entails, our industry value proposition, is first of all the business context. What is the operating model relevant to your industry? That already eliminates a lot of the complexity that exists in the overall SAP application portfolio and in the process complexity, because you don't need all of that. You need what is relevant to your industry and your business environment. We also explore the market challenges that companies in your industry are facing typically and what effect they have on the technology choices that you need to make. The main trends in terms of innovation, business process change, technology adoption, what is really driving change and innovation in your business? That is what we bring from the knowledge that we have from other customers, from the industry in general, and from our staying on top of the latest technology changes. And we can distill then all that into the drivers and value that you can derive out of digitalization and technology adoption. That's more on the business strategy side and on the value of technology adoption and change. But the real powerful aspect that we can now bring to the table with the use of these tools is that we can go into all the detail that we need to really make that work in your business environment. We can show and explore in detail the business processes in the Signavio toolset, the best practices, the adopted best practices for your industry at a detailed level, at level 4 of your process flows, exactly step by step, how the process should be run in a best practice approach, with the applications and the technology that is supporting that. And that then combines into an overall architecture, a best practice architecture, and a best practice roadmap to get there. Now, that is very much a future vision that we can provide that is a pretty good fit to you already. I'm not saying perfect, but it's a pretty good fit and a much better fit than just a generic best practice, which typically doesn't really fit the specifics of your industry. And with that industry-specific best practice, we can then leverage the SAP Activate methodology, which focuses on not the torture dungeons of business requirements gathering, but starts with exploring, explaining, and analyzing that future vision. This is how we could be running in detail. Then an automated way of contrasting that with how your software and your processes are operating today. Again, without having to do interrogation of key users, just by looking at what's happening in the system in an automated fashion. And then we can compare and contrast and find the right path, whether that be greenfield, selective data transition, brownfield, and really find the right approach for you to get you to that new vision. And this then combines the two sides of an IT implementation that we also always need to balance. On the one hand, we want to have a clean core approach. We want to stick close to standard. We want to be able to leverage new functionality, new technology that is coming out on a very increased pace because we are close to standard and because that new technology can be integrated in an easy way. We want to simplify the landscapes and the architectures. On the other hand, it still needs to fit the business. It needs to bring value to the business. It needs to fit to the industry-specific processes that are key to your success as a company. So we cannot oversimplify things and lose sight of fit for purpose for the industry, of top line, bottom line, green line innovation as it applies to your business context, to your industry, and of course, achieve process innovation, process optimization, and increasingly important, resilience in your overall business processes and supply chains. So this is how we see the promised land of business innovation, driven by technologies like SAP's S/4HANA, Signavio for process modeling, LeanIX for architecture and strategy road mapping, Cloud ALM for project implementation and data, and applications like WalkMe in the future for user adoption. Most importantly, though, with a changed mindset of information technology and business consultants helping you by providing a vision of how you could be running your business, rather than forcing you into a tortured dungeon of business requirements gathering and then just implementing what you've already been doing for the last 20 years. That is the promise that we are going to bring to you and are bringing to the market right now. And we're excited about going the next steps with you. Thank you.